Hello, everyone. Evening. Sorry, we're having a bit of a technical glitch here. Hopefully, recording has started. Let's hope so. Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle. I'm one of the co-founders of ARTFA, and today we're doing a session on what meaningful IVF reform looks like to you. And what we thought we'll do is just have a bit of a conversation around every cohort of what they think is relevant to themselves. I'm just going to change here a bit. So before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting, wherever you may be joining us from across Australia tonight. I pay respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people here with us today. As I said, my name is Michelle. I'm one of the co-founders of ARTFA, Assisted Reproduction Treatment Families Australia. I'll be your admin for tonight's session. We're incredibly lucky to have so many generous and brave individuals joining us tonight. I thank you all because I know this isn't easy for you. I really think you guys are phenomenal, with your advocacy of what you guys are doing. And look, we wanted to bring you guys on first because we really feel you guys are the hardest hit in all of this. Finding out later in life is just, I can't say. It's just wrong. Everyone should know this stuff from the get-go, and that's what we're trying to advocate for. We're trying to stop the stigma of parents not telling their children, and I just really appreciate you guys being here because I know this isn't easy for you to do. So thanks. One of the core reasons we created ARTFA was to provide a national independent platform to represent and support families formed through IVF treatment and donor conception. We saw a gap and we hope to step in and fill this. We believe in the power of lived experience and in the importance of hearing from all parts of the community. Every voice matters, and that's why tonight's session is about listening, learning and reflecting. Everyone's got a right to their own opinion and we should just respect that. And let's just try to learn and discover what everyone else has got to say. I'm also really excited to tell, since last time we had our webinar, we're now officially a charity. It took quite a while, so I'm very happy with that. And hopefully it's a step forward in strengthening our work and credibility and our reach. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. This session is going to be recorded and will be shared publicly. So if you do not wish to be in the recording, you may need to step out or turn your screen off. We're happy for you to do that. You're welcome to use the chat to share respectful comments and questions. We'll do our best to respond to as many of them as we can. And also just really, everyone, some of these stories shared tonight may be emotionally difficult. Please take care of yourself. It's completely okay to step away if you need to. And while tonight's session may raise questions or emotions for some of you, please remember that this is a community discussion. It is not a clinical space. And should you require personal advice or emotional support, we encourage you to reach out to your counsellor, fertility specialist or IVF provider. And just another quick and important disclaimer, the views shared tonight are not personal and it's based on everyone's lived experience. They don't necessarily reflect all the official views of ARTFA, but it's important that everyone has their own say. As part of our ongoing commitment to inclusivity, we are working hard to ensure every impacted group has the opportunity to be heard. And that's why tonight I'll be stepping back and handing this over to Lyndall Bubke to guide us through this powerful conversation. So thank you so much, Lyndall, and thank you all the rest of you for being here tonight.
Michelle, thank you for that. I see that we've actually got Catherine now, though, so I might throw to her. I think
okay, yeah, she was going to. Where is she? Is she?
I'm here, but I've had to have some help from Amy to be
able
to log in. Sorry, I was having big technical issues, but I'm happy to. I'm just hoping to be here to help facilitate. So anyone wanting to jump in or help, like Linda, I'm totally happy to work with you on that too. So yeah, I'm a donor conceived person, and I've been, I guess, pretty vocal in our community on our side of stuff with some social media and trying to get medical information to my siblings. Yeah, so I just am hoping to bring in more donor conceived voices and to join in the discussion and hear from people that you might not have heard from and hear their perspectives. So if you're happy to, Michelle, we can jump straight into, I guess, our first question. And anyone who wants to put up their hand to speak or jump in, like, absolutely go for it. So I guess the first one is, do you believe that parents should be disclosing donor conception to their children? I guess we all say that I'm saying that with a smile, but
no,
obviously...
secrecy is really great. It doesn't harm people at all. You know?
Lyndall, do you want to share your opinions on this topic?
Sure. I'll hand over because I saw that I'll throw to you next, Amy. But yeah, I'm a late discovery donor conceived person. I was 30 and sitting at my desk at work when I found out that I was donor conceived. My parents also had a really weird way of telling me about it. They basically implied it heavily in the hopes that I would work it out, and they didn't really seem to register I would be at work when they were doing that. So anyway, I had to call my husband to get him to pick me up because I was in tears because I was realizing my half-sisters through my dad's side weren't biological relatives. My dad isn't a biological relative. I was a wreck. And I'm a manager in my workplace. It was really hard to sort of have that happen and have to sort of keep face while my world was falling apart. And then they believed that if I'd worked it out, that what I'd do is I would manage my younger brother, who's also donor conceived, his emotional journey through that. And I would tell him, and then we could all have a polite family conversation on the Saturday. There was nothing polite about that week. It was a very unpleasant week for everyone involved, and I was extraordinarily angry. Some people respond with a strong emotional anger response. Some people are devastated. Some people are depressed. Some people are completely unbothered. All of those are really normal reactions to finding out you've been lied to about your parentage for your entire life. For me, it was anger. And anger is a horrible and draining emotion. And it probably took me about 6 months to stop being angry. And to my parents' immense credit, they immediately realised they'd perhaps not chosen the best path. Thought that maybe I'd be much less bothered by it than I was. When they realised I was, they about turned and just completely threw their support behind me and acknowledged they regretted that choice. But what a horrible experience for all of us. It took a lot of time for me and my mother, who I'm extremely close to sort of regain some of the trust that we'd had before. And it didn't need to happen. She deeply regrets it now too. I'm really pleased to say that we're all 100% on the same page these days. Relationship has been entirely mended, but for a lot of people that's not true, and that's a really devastating reality, to have that falling out with your parents that didn't need to ever happen. That's my lived experience. I would always suggest it's not like you tell them when they're 10. It's always part of the story, and that's fine. It's just part of their narrative. Your kids are still going to love you. If you're doing this, if you're not telling them because you're scared they won't love you, that's a terrible reason to not do it. Amy, I'll throw to you.
Thank you, Lyndall. I'm so sorry. That is awful. Just to sum it up in a very simple way, and I don't think awful really covers majority of the experiences that I associate with being donor conceived. I think one of the best experiences is having a community with other donor conceived people. But I was a little bit younger. I was 20, about to turn 21 when I was told. And interesting that one of the emotions that I felt most strongly was just relief after, I say, 20 years of just wondering and questioning and truly investigating, and just knowing that there were all these cover-ups and lies. And I think kids are quite intuitive, that they can sense when something is being intentionally hidden. And just having grown up with all these lies about, this is who your father was, this is who he was to me, and really awful things to cover it up. I think the lengths that my mother went to deter me from searching for my father. It was just my mother and I growing up, so a single mother by choice. And she said, "Oh, you've got to love me because your father would, like, your father didn't want you. Your father was someone that I slept with and didn't want you, so don't even bother going to look for him. Don't chase him down. Like, he's not going to want anything to do with you. And she was just adding to the lies in a really traumatic way. So I think that's no better. I mean, I think the truth is no better, but it's also no worse, actually. It's, yeah, I remember being told and realizing that, oh, this is actually, oh, actually, I was like, oh, I don't actually know if this is true. Don't know if it's real. I haven't mended my relationship with my mother. My friends love to say when I say, oh, my mom told me this, they were like, oh, but she lies. Like, just because she said it, like, she'll, yeah, I don't think lying about something so huge can ever really be moved past without, I guess, intentional and intentional efforts. So yeah, I really do encourage being told, or children should be told the truth about who they are. It's no, I think, as Lyndall touched on, it's no different to just, I don't know, like, I don't think it's you're not doing yourself or them a service by withholding it. That's in my experience. Can I throw to M?
Hi, I am Emily. I knew that I was the black sheep growing up in my family, and it caused a lot of issues for me and my family. I was a very rebellious teenager, and I was very different from the rest of my family, and I could never figure out why. And I think I felt closest to my dad. He was the most similar to me, and I guessed it was just a bunch of throwback traits. And then during COVID, I was a single parent of a 1-year-old girl, and I decided to do a DNA test for fun because we were in lockdown and it was boring and it was just me and this toddler. And so I did the Ancestry DNA test, and at the time, I was doing it because my mum told me that we had Native American in our past, and I kind of wanted to really explore that. It sounded exciting. There was no Native American in there, by the way. But I got the results back. Nothing seemed overly weird. In hindsight, there were a few weird things, but I just didn't notice them. Closed the site off, never thought about it again. And then 3 months later, I get a message on Instagram from a teenager living in Victoria who is telling me that I'm coming up as a close relative for them and to check Ancestry. So I did, and they were coming up as a half sibling or first cousin. And so I went back to Instagram, started talking to them, and they tell me that they were, in their words, a donor baby. And so I kind of figured out what that meant, called my mum up at like 10 o'clock at night. I'm so excited at this point because I think that it's my dad that's the donor. I think that maybe my dad and my uncle, I've just gained all these new siblings. And for someone that had sisters that were 10 years older than me, this was exciting. I felt like an only child. And then my mum told me I was the donor conceived one. And I was completely devastated. I never thought my parents would ever lie to me about anything. I never thought that they would be the kind to use IVF. I didn't think that they would need to use IVF. They had 2 sisters or 2 daughters that were older than me. So yeah, there was probably a period of 6 months where I couldn't even look in the mirror. I had to cover them up with towels because every time I caught a glimpse of myself, I would just start crying. And I think one of my biggest coping mechanisms at the time was moving forward as fast as I possibly could. So within 2 weeks of finding out I was donor conceived, I had also found the donor because I just couldn't sit there for a minute, I had to keep moving forward as quick as I could, because if I stood still, I'd have to deal with all the grief and the trauma. And I was lucky enough that I found the community pretty early, and I managed to work out a lot of my trauma from there. But to this day, my parents still don't really want to talk about it. They still don't want to hear about any advocacy or donor conception stuff. My mum will slip up every now and again and tell me how I have my dad's cheekbones. They just don't want to deal with it at all. And from my perspective, I think there's a lot of trust that has been eroded. And even though I try to be as close to them as possible, still, I don't think I'll ever be able to trust them or get rid of the feeling that I was betrayed. So I think, yes, you should be telling your children from day dot. The experiences I have with people that have known their whole life is that they're often a little bit better off. Not always. Sometimes they still have a lot of trauma, but most of the time they're always going to be better off than finding out as an adult. You have a foundation in which you place who you are, who your parents are, where you live, what your name is, your sisters, your family, whatever, and you build your life on top of that. And if you take that foundation out, your whole life is going to come crumbling down. So now I'm passing to Ben.
Thanks, Em. Hi, everyone. I'm Ben. I found out I was donor conceived last year at 43 years old. It was completely unexpected. I grew up until the age of 11, 12 in a loving family. My parents split up, still had a loving family. They were wonderful parents, did everything for me, did not suspect that I was donor conceived in any way, shape or form, didn't even realise or understand what donor I understood it, but really hadn't delved into it or thought anything about it. And yeah, so I found out, my sister found out a week before me. She'd figured a few things out and asked my mum about it, and then mum was honest with her. And then they went and mum come and told me one afternoon, just got a phone call from my stepdad, which was a bit unusual. He doesn't usually call me. It's usually through my mum, and I'll speak with him in the background if he's on a video call, etc. And I was a bit taken back that he'd called me, and he said, "Oh, your mum's coming around. She's got something to discuss." And I was more worried about a health concern, more so with my mum or my stepfather. And when she got here, we kind of squirreled my daughter away in front of the telly in the other end of the house, because mum's like, "Oh, we need our privacy." And anyway, yeah, and she pretty much dropped it on me that, yeah, your father's not your father. And it was bang. At that point, my world just went into what felt like a dream. It probably lasted near on 6 months. I thought I ended up going and seeking counselling. I thought I was depressed, but the counsellor actually said, "No, you're just actually got long-term shock." So yeah, it was difficult. The realizations that my sister that I'd grown up with, was she my full sibling? Like we didn't know these things. Mum explained that the clinic had said that the donor wasn't donating anymore, so unfortunately they couldn't use the same donor. It was the early 80s, so it was in a time when this industry was really being pioneered in Australia. Yeah, anyway, it was a tough few months. About 6 to 8 weeks went on, and I decided to do a DNA test. I did a DNA test through Ancestry, got my results back in early October, and I was linked to 11 donor-conceived siblings, and my biological father was up there. Crazy thing was the first article that I read when I found out I was donor conceived, that was my donor. That was my parents' donor. That was my biological father on the front of the paper, and my sister, and it was pretty mind blowing. Like, yeah. Anyway,
I've just
within a
worked out
week,
who your donor is by that story, Ben. That's lovely.
yeah, you know it, Lyndall. And I'm sure if people know the industry, everyone will know who it is, etc. But anyway, so yeah, within a week I'd met my sister, my half sister, and my half brother, and about 3 weeks later I'd met my donor, or my parents' donor, my biological father. I've only met him once, but it was a strange feeling. Never once did I not look at my dad and not see myself, the dad that raised me. But when I found out this information, you were saying about you had to cover your mirrors up. Every time I walked past a mirror, or I went, I'd lose myself in the mirror because I'd be looking at myself trying to figure out where I'd come from, until I got those DNA results, which was it was in itself shocking to get all of this information at once, but at the same time I was so happy to have it because I had the answers that I'd wanted. And I'm someone that once I find something out, I'm head first into it until I get those answers, because I just need to know that information. So anyway, yeah, it was pretty crazy. About Christmas time, things started to settle down for myself, and I felt my world stop spinning so much. But yeah, it was something that was very shocking and did cause a lot of trauma for myself for a big part of last year. But anyway, so yes, I do believe parents should tell their children from an early age. And if not, if there's any parents out there tonight watching that haven't told their children about it, just be honest with them. It's better to come from you than them find out through other means, i.e. a DNA test or them figuring it out. Because as the others here have raised, it does it does really give you trust issues, and it's so hard to work through those trust issues. They're your parents, they're the people that brought you up, that have, well, mine did anyway. They drove honesty and openness. You speak to us about anything, you don't lie. Like, yeah, we're a family, we work through situations together. And at 43, to find out that they'd kept something of my core, my biology, my genetics, who I am, from me for all my life, it caused a lot of trust issues. But a good counsellor got me through that. I'm blessed, and I feel grateful to have found them. So yeah, just the earlier the better, and just be honest with people now, because there's so many different issues that can come out of it. But one of the big things is health, and I really think everyone is entitled to that information. And yeah, you guys, the recipient parents should be honest with their children about that, so they are armed with that information when they go to doctors, when they have medical problems, etc. So yeah, anyway, I'll throw back to you, Lyndall and Catherine. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, everyone. I'd love to see if, you went into a lot of your feelings about like what it did feel like to find out later in life, but I wonder if there's like a few key, like if you'd sum it up in like your 3 biggest feelings of what it was like to find out, and see like what those 3 words might be to describe how it felt to find out. Lyndall, what would you say?
I think my first feeling was absolute devastation, and that pervaded the first few months. And it's funny because it's not that I was devastated that I was donor conceived. The bit that perplexes me more than anything, there's adoption in my family, open, known adoption. My dad's two brothers both adopted daughters. Their wives, children from earlier relationships with deadbeat dads who buggered off, and they'd always been my cousins. And we used to joke that one of them and I were the only ones that looked alike. You know, not a relative, I can confirm, sadly, but wouldn't that be a beautiful little story? I think it's the feeling of like, it's not that I would have been devastated to be donor conceived, it's that I was devastated to have the rug pulled out from under my feet. The truth isn't the problem, it's the lies that preceded that was the problem.
Yeah, Amy, how about you? What would you say the three biggest feelings were?
I think the first one to hit was pure relief. If you have just, I guess, been wanting to know something as a child, especially, I guess, myself being quite a curious, and I guess as a child I was very curious and wanted to know things, and knowing something more about myself was, I think, all I wanted. But that relief was so quickly replaced by just shock, horror, disappointment. I think that's more than three, but that's truly how it felt to be like, oh, okay, you can go to the clinics and they will not tell you anything. You can ask your mother for more information and she'll never ever talk about it again. Like, I don't think I've ever had another conversation about this again. I don't think I could call her up, and I think I think that was just one and done. I think that was just her talk about it, and then that with the lack of transparency in the clinics and the lack of legislation and the whole, I guess, the whole, just everything about donor conception that I had come to know was just so horrific. That sounds very dramatic, and there are, yeah, I think that sums it up. I think that's where we're at today. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, what do you think? What are your biggest words to summarize these feelings?
So I would go with betrayal, devastation, and grief. I think the moment that I found out, and for a long time afterwards, it felt the same to me as, or the closest I can explain it, I guess, would be that feeling when you just find out someone you loved has passed away, and you're stuck in this moment of like just almost disassociation and devastation, but the world keeps spinning, but your whole life is just changed. My dad, still to this day, is the greatest man I've ever met in my entire life. Like, I cannot fault him. I cannot find a better man. God knows I love my husband, but like, even he's not matching up to my dad. And to find out that I was not related to him, and then to meet my biological father, who is not a great person, because even if you tell your kids that a really nice man donated, it doesn't actually make them nice men. You don't know who they are. And my biological father is not a nice man. And it really, really sucks. I don't think I'm ever going to get over the fact that I'm related to him and not my dad. Ben.
Thanks, Em. Three biggest feelings would probably was confusion. I was very confused. That then led to sadness in a sense, and then concern, because once I started to figure out what it meant, there was so many different concerns about how it affects you. It's like a butterfly effect, a drop in the ocean. This one little decision for many lives to come can have such ripple effects and consequences to not just that one person, but a lot of other people around them. So, yeah, confusion, concern, and sadness from me. Thanks, Catherine.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all of those. And Amy, you touched on this a little bit, because I know the legislation, like if we're not all familiar, that's different in every state. But we sort of wanted to get your opinions on what your thoughts are on national regulations. And I guess if you want to talk about the state you're in and the legislation that's there, and if you're for or against national legislation. Does anyone want to jump in? Maybe Lyndall, you're smiling.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, passionate advocate against national regulation, of course. You know, why would we want a consistent approach between states? It's just so much better when there's a patchwork quilt of different approaches and the clinics can game the system. No, huge supporter of a national framework. I'm in Queensland. Our legislation has just been delayed for reasons that are completely baffling and perplexing and really hurtful for people who advocated so strongly for them over so many years. A national framework for me would mean that my siblings interstate all have the same, we all end up at the same rights, the same protections, and it doesn't matter what year you were born in, whether you get to be introduced to the donor or whether you have to join the sibling group chat to get his email address, sort of thing. It's not fair. It should just be one country, one approach.
Absolutely. Amy, sorry, you were jumping in there. What were your opinions?
Oh, not at all. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Lyndall. Like, truly, just, yeah, the fact that I was conceived and born in 1998, which is actually quite recent. Like, I'm quite, I think, young. I'm only in my late 20s, but that already rules me out to access a lot of the rights that people who may be in their earlier 20s or late teens have. And I think, like, that's just in New South Wales. That's really weird to me. I think someone conceived, I was conceived at a clinic which was brought up by Monash IVF, who were raking it in. Like, I can't imagine like the level of like admin involved for a huge company like that. That's nothing. Like that should just be, I think, the norm. For a start, and to think that, I've actually, weirdly enough, not met anyone who was aware of the donor conceived status who is younger than me in New South Wales, which is interesting. But for the other older than myself, donor conceived people in this state, they've all had to get their records in a way that was not supported at all by the legislation, because we don't have anything that guarantees that we can access anything, basically. Non-identifying information, yes, but I absolutely consider that as nothing. Like, sorry, but that's like a dating profile. That is just like, I'm just gonna be like, yeah, my favorite color is whatever, and I went to here and there, and like nothing is verified. So what I do have because of the state-based legislation just means nothing to me. And having federal legislation, that is just, I think that's just going to be better. Like, I don't think the answer is having all these weird little practices being okay. Like, I think if we're looking at this through like a federal lens, if we're putting it under more of a microscope, then I think these practices will not be okay. That's a lot to say that, yes, federal legislation, please, especially considering my donor, my siblings, they could be anywhere in the country. Actually, I don't know anyone. Like, I have not matched with anyone that I'm biologically related to, except for a lot of matches on my maternal side, which is random. Don't want to know any more of them. But for my paternal side, I'm meant to be one of 5 siblings. That could be like, you could add 1 0, 2 zeros to that. Like, and yeah, I think a national register legislation, etc., would be a start. Not the, more from there, but yes, big yes. Yes, Em.
I am 100% in support. So My donor donated to a clinic and conceived me. And I don't know how many others they were conceived at that clinic, but I do know from distribution records that as soon as my donor donated, his stuff was sent all over Australia to many different clinics. I have 4 years of records, but it seems to go on for about 14 years. So that's a lot of missing records, and that's a lot of clinics that his stuff was sent to. Every single state has different limitations on siblings, and they've already seemed to have gone well over just in WA. So I have no idea. And then parents don't tell their children, and nothing seems to be on the same page in Australia whatsoever. And it's absolute insanity that my sister in Victoria has slightly different rights than I do because she was conceived in New South Wales. And then we have siblings in every other state too that are going to have different rights. None of it makes sense. None of it is safe. And my sister's donor profile says that our donor was a Mediterranean-skinned, brown hair, brown-eyed man. And mine says that he was blonde with blue eyes and a marathon runner and 75 kilos, and he's none of those things. So mistakes are being made too when they're getting sent across state lines. It makes a lot more sense to have everything in a neat little package so everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. Ben, what are your thoughts on the national
Being a recent discovery, essentially in the last 12 months, I haven't super got my head around all the laws and everything like that, but I completely agree with what everyone said here. We need to have, like, it needs to be national. There needs to be a national governing body implemented with regards to not just donor conception, but the whole, ART industry, to stop the mismatch of laws between states, and as other people have said, the rights of everyone. They need to get it. And essentially it'd be good because some of these donors donate internationally as well, and it'd be really good to see if Australia could get on and actually try and get something started with some other nations to form an international register of donors that can go internationally. That would be an end goal, but national, I'll be happy with national for a start. It'd be lovely. So it'd be great to see an inquiry happen as well into past practices, and maybe an apology from the government to say, and the clinics to say, you know what, we messed up, we're sorry that this has happened. So anyway, definitely national laws implemented there. Thanks, Catherine.
Yeah, thank you. I've definitely heard Lauren Burns ask for a national apology as well, I think even before an Australian story, and I'd agree with that because I think there's still maybe damage that has been done that a lot of people don't know about. And so I guess that leads into the rapid review. We've heard that there's going to be a rapid review in the next 3 months with the health ministers. So looking into past practices seems like something that you'd like, Ben. Is there anyone else that'd like to add what they'd like to see in that rapid review, what they'd like to see included? Anyone want to jump in? Lyndall, maybe you want to go first? Oh, sorry, Ben, go for it.
Nothing major to add.
It'd be really good to see the government set up some support programs for people.
Like counselling?
Very much so. Again,
counselling that's not run by the clinics. I don't want to go talk to them. I hate them. I want to talk to other donor conceived people.
You go to a national body and exactly independent counsellors or psychologists that are versed in this industry, that you can be like, look, I've just found out this information, my head's running wild, can you guys give me some kind of information to find the right people that I can go and speak to with about this. Like I went to see a counsellor about 2 weeks after I found out, and she essentially sat there for an hour with her jaw on the desk trying to figure out what this all meant. And I was at the end of it, she just said to me, I think you need more sessions, come back and see me, but just remember, write your own story. And I was like, that's all you're going to tell me, write my own story? And anyway, it wasn't until I found my half sister and my half brother, my half sister set me on the right track with relation to an amazing counsellor here in Brisbane, or psychologist here in Brisbane. Yeah, she was wonderful. So what was her name? Narelle Dickinson. So she's over at Green Slopes, but amazing. She's yeah, well versed in the industry. So again, to have that kind of body of information put together, when people discover this information, they can go somewhere and find that out to get the support they need throughout that process of discovery. Essentially, definitely part of something that I like to see implemented with a national body.
Yeah, and so Ben, there's a question here, like, did you find it really hard to find a counsellor? I guess getting help through your sister, getting connected to the community, is that how?
Very much so.
Yeah.
I think I was lucky. I'd found some. I was a bit of an active member on Reddit, not a lot, but I made an account, and I found a community, lovely lady there, who may or may not be sitting in here, pointed me in the right direction to kind of find something in Australia. So to find the community here in Australia through a couple of the Facebook groups that are going was wonderful. And then essentially, yeah, like I said, meeting my half sister and my half brother. My sister just was like, go and speak to this person, mate. She'll help you get your head sorted out and straightened out. And like, I probably would have been seeing the other counsellor for 6 months. And when I saw Narelle, she had me sorted in 2 sessions. It was, yeah, she knows her stuff, and she has that complete background. So you don't need to go into that like you would have to with a lot of counsellors that don't understand it. So, so yeah, it's very helpful.
Yeah, maybe Em, what would you like to see in the rapid review?
I want to see some kind of progress towards like a time to tell campaign. I feel like we don't really focus on that enough. The fact that there's so many donor conceived people out there to this day that still don't know they're donor conceived, and they could really need that information. So my donor has multiple sclerosis and a number of other issues. I know that health issues have been a massive deal and talking point in our community. There are people that need that information, and their parents are keeping it from them still because they don't know that they shouldn't be. You know, there are some people that did donor conception in the 80s and 90s and then just never thought about it again. We need to kind of make it public to put that on the parents so that they understand, oh, we actually do need to tell our children.
Yeah, absolutely. Amy, do you? Oh yeah, sorry.
Amy, you go first.
Yeah, Amy, go for it.
Oh, yeah. I think Time to Tell campaign sounds amazing. I think all of this would actually involve, yeah, the government actually giving an absolute like damn about the end product of the processes. Sorry, I just realized that this is literally a parent forum, so I'm not going to say the F word, but you know, it's like they don't actually care at all at this point, like not to sound disillusioned, but they don't. So like we're trying to make them care. And like, you know, support groups would be a start. Like, is that not like obvious? So clearly they don't care. So it's like there is no kind of like mechanism that's like, okay, cool, here you access these treatments, and then you know you end up with a child, and then you literally go home and treat it like a little, like, I don't know, like baby toy. Like You know, like you go literally to the store to get, I don't know, like a computer, and you get more of a whole warranty talk and stuff than like actually when you go home and like how you like, you know, like how you get talked through about what happens after you've had the child, what happens after we have given you this ingredient and now you've got a baby and that baby's going to grow into like a child and adult and blah blah. And it's like, yeah, to see that the government actually recognizes that as like a public health concern, right? Like I think actually realizing that, yeah, this does affect, I don't know, like a huge percent of the population more than people know. Like there are probably people in government right now who are like, they have no idea they're donor conceived. They're all going home after their desk job and being like, cool, these are my parents. They're not your parents. So you know what I mean? Like I think that just requires that kind of like total like shift in mindset, being like, these are not the you know, this is not the end goal. Like you haven't actually finished your time with the client as a clinic when the child is born. Like that's not when it stops. Like, I mean, to be honest, their job actually doesn't even, it's before the child is born. They're like, okay, cool, here's your, you know, sperm or egg, now run off. Like, I think that for a start, I don't know, someone obviously, you know, we've got advocates here who will word it in less of a like fucking annoyed way. I'm sorry, but yes, that in the legislation, please, whatever. Sorry, I
And
know
you had
Em, you
your
had
hand
your,
up as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking before, my husband and I did IVF last year, and we noticed in our contract, and we used my husband's sperm, but we noticed in the contract there was actually a subsection that we were signing that said that if there was a sperm, egg, or embryo mix up, that it wouldn't be the clinic's responsibility. And I thought to myself, is that what we're coming to? Like, it's happening so often now that clinics are preemptively trying to cover their own asses by adding that into the initial like contract. So I think that needs to be looked at as well, because I feel like that shouldn't be happening at all, let alone enough to make it into the contract. It is their responsibility if there's an embryo, sperm, or egg mix up. Actually, Michelle, I probably still have the photo I took of the paperwork somewhere, so I'll send it to you.
Yeah, go for it, Lyndall, if you got something
Look,
to add as well.
it's a bit of a topic change, but I'm just conscious there are some really good questions in the chat that I'd love to sort of have a bit of a stab at, if that's possible. It might be that we sort of need to have almost a follow-up webinar session that might be questions you guys have for donor conceived people, what you wish you could what you wish you could ask your kids, but they're 3. You know, some of the questions are fantastic. Stuff like, when is the right time for them to inquire about meeting other siblings? And when is the right time for them to inquire about meeting donor? And I think the answer to that is when your kids are interested in it and in a supervised and age-appropriate way. Like, I often think I would have a very different relationship with my siblings who I've met, and I am close to them. We are in a massive group chat. I would have a very different relationship with them if I'd known them growing up. I would have had them at my wedding, and I didn't get that opportunity. And I begrudge that. That's a loss to me. I reckon 5-year-old Lyndall would have been an absolute pain to all of these siblings. I would have been one of the older ones, so I would have been even more insufferable. But playdates at the park, or going to Macca's and getting lunch together, or just doing neutral, sort of non-threatening, non-pressured public places, sort of meet and greets, and see if they like each other. Some of my siblings and I are absolutely nothing alike, and we probably would have been like, cool, see you in 18 years sort of thing. But I reckon for others, I would have been really good friends with them. And at times when I would have needed a friend, it would have been nice to have an actual sibling. I reckon it's whenever they're ready, or whenever they start making movement, that's the time to seriously engage with it. Take them at face value. They probably mean it, and they're probably capable of making that call. Even if anyone else has any different thoughts, it's a tricky one, and each kid's different, of course. But
No, I think that's excellent advice, Lyndall. Especially, you know, I'm a solo mother by choice, and hearing from our community comes up a lot when should we, and hearing from you guys, that's really great. it just cements what we've actually, a lot of conversation goes around in our group.
I definitely would have liked to have known my siblings growing up. The one that I am closest to that I've that found me originally, she is quite a lot younger than me. I think she's 10 years younger than me. And when she was 13, she was raised, as I said, by a queer single mother by choice. And when she was 13, her mother actually passed away. And so she ended up being raised by her conservative grandparents out on a farm. And she did not get along with them. And it makes me feel guilty because, I'm her big sister. I'm 10 years older than her. I should have been there. I should have been able to help her in some kind of way or made her feel less alone. And I couldn't do that because I wasn't there. I didn't have an opportunity to be able to do that because I didn't know she existed. She grew up thinking that all she had was her grandparents, and she had siblings out there that could have been there for her.
The other question that I saw that sparked my interest in here was, the kids have always known. Kids can talk to the siblings, meet the donor if they really want to. But what happens when something's gone wrong with the clinics? Do you tell them that? How honest and upfront should you be? I think that's a really tricky question. I don't know what my own thoughts are about this. I think kids would rather know, but the way you tell them is probably really important. I wish I had experience in breaking bad news to kids, but I don't have any, so I don't know how much of an expert I would be. It's hard to say. Does anyone have any thoughts on that? Em, maybe?
Look, I think that the heartbreaking situation is happening whether you like it or not. But at the end of the day, at least they can turn around and say that their parents were honest with them always. I think that's the most important thing. You're not breaking that trust. There's no betrayal. The heartbreaking thing is still happening whether you like it or not, whether you tell the truth or not. But at least their parents didn't lie to them.
Yes, I would absolutely just agree with 100%. It's not like you're going to, we talk about death in the family. When someone dies, I don't know, I was maybe 11 when my grandmother passed away. It would have been so much worse if my mother was like, oh, she didn't pass away. She is just, I don't know, we've just gone and sent her off to a farm. You know what I mean? I think resilience building is the kind of goal here. It's not you can change it. It's not like you not telling your child erases the error wherever it was in the process. And also, of course, as adults, unfortunately, we've had to adjust and adapt to situations which are really heartbreaking and are really hard. But yeah, as Em said, at least we're not lying about it. If you that's an added level of emotional labor that actually you don't want to live with. I don't know, when I, go to work and I'm like, am I going to lie about not finishing the work, or am I just going to say I couldn't finish the work? That's that is just so much more just better for everyone, right? So in saying that, if there were mix-ups and stuff, you're showing also your child that you know how to navigate a difficult situation, and you will help them navigate, and they're supported in dealing with this. And I think that's the best that you can do. You can't go to the clinic and be like, whoa, you shouldn't have put that in me. But from there, it's okay, how do we adapt to this new reality? Better than them not having any idea at all. And, we're all okay. And it's not. So I think I actually didn't even see the original question in the meeting chat, but I hope that answered it.
I said I was going to stay out of this conversation, didn't I? I'm not really succeeding very much. Um, just interesting, this question came up. Obviously, I live and breathe this sort of stuff at the moment and talk about it a lot in my house. So obviously my son hears it, doesn't he? And I thought I'd ask him. What would he think if he wasn't genetically related to me. You know, there was shock on his face. I think a bit of scaredness in his face. You know, we were able to turn it around into a joking thing. He also said, oh, you know, I said to him, oh, who do you want to stay with, that sort of thing. And he's like, oh, I'll have to see who offers the better deal, pretty much. You know, that sort of thing. But I think it's the thing of, obviously, if something like that did happen, you know, we would have to go and get counselling. Counselling would be very important. And the younger that we do it, the better it is, because then they can come to terms with whatever family dynamic it is. You know, it's, you know, there's a lot of questions are being asked, especially now where children are being born with the wrong parents. You know, there's no way, you know, if someone told me he wasn't genetically related to me, there's no way in hell I would let him go live with anybody else. He's my son. You know, it doesn't mean I'm not going to let him find out about the rest of the stuff, the rest of his DNA in his family. But yeah, it's an interesting thing that I thought I'd never have to think about, you know, and with all this work that we've been doing, it's and seeing the muck-ups, yeah, it's a real question now and a worry for a lot of people. I'll try and stay quiet.
No, I think it's a really good point, Michelle, and it, you know, it highlights exactly the, I think the thing that so many recipient parents have historically and still today felt the need to cling to secrecy for is this fear that your kids will stop loving you. And it's just the most implausible thing that would be the thing of anything that would ruin a relationship. Like, I don't love my parents any less. It's just, I wish I'd known. I always wish I'd known, everything would have been better. Are we at time?
We're always at time, but it doesn't really matter. We can keep going. Yeah, we have come to an hour. I'm not sure. Was there any other sort of questions in there that, oh, hang on. Has someone raised another one in the Q&A? Nick is asking for more detail on birth certificates. Yeah, I was looking at the Victorian birth certificates. You can now get an extended birth certificate that anyone can apply for. I'm not sure if anyone knows about it. And basically, if you were adopted, it would show your adoption parents, your birth parents, as well as your adopted parents. It's called an integrated birth certificate, that's right. And anyone can apply for it. So I'm not, yeah, so is there any more details that you guys would like to see on the birth certificates?
No more details necessarily. I mean, maybe a subsection that actually clearly states that we are donor conceived, but I am in support of this. I think it makes it a lot harder for parents to lie to their children, and I think it's an important record to have who a child is biologically related to. So I'm fully in support of it.
It'll be interesting to, like, I think it would be interesting too if parents knew it was going to be on their birth certificates, then they actually might tell the children as well. There will be no secrecy. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that exactly the same thing, Michelle, is that, you know, it should be on everyone's birth certificate, their origins, you know, that's what it is. It's a certificate about your birth, about who you are. You know, it should hold that information on there, you know, and you should be entitled to that information. If your parents haven't disclosed it to you, when do you need your birth certificate at 16 to go and get your learner's license? And you know what? You should be able to request that from the government. I don't think you can do it until you're 18, but at 16 you should be lawfully allowed to request it from the government, and it should hold that information. You know, in that pack, if it does hold that information, that's where this national governing body comes from. Is there's a little help pack that's popped in with that birth certificate because, you know, this might be unknown to that person. There's some information in here that you may not understand, but here is some support networks to help you grasp what's going on and help you through the next little phase that you're going to have a journey through.
Yeah, I agree. Just another thing with, I'm not sure if there was any more questions we had in there in the chat. before we probably close up for the night?
No, but we've got the
Because-
legislation in Queensland says at 16 you can access that, I think, your birth certificate. So that is good, Ben. They've already taken on your suggestion.
They just need to add everything else there, Catherine.
Yeah.
That's good that you can access it at 16. I didn't realise that.
But it might be different state to state, is it? Because
Of
like
course
you
it is,
can,
Michelle.
It is different. And those reforms also haven't come into effect in Queensland yet, and now they've been delayed. So
they're like,
national
yeah.
framework, national framework, national framework.
Yeah. I look, I really appreciate everyone giving up your time, and also, you know, I really feel it's such an emotional topic for you guys. And I really appreciate, you know, you guys coming out and helping, and everyone doing your advocacy work on this, because, you know, we can't do it alone. I really, you know, after what we went through with VADA last year and the closure of it, I was really disheartened that a lot of the communities didn't come together on it and advocate more. We're such a small community as it is, and we really need to work together, you know, and you know, just push it. The more we can push it, the more it can be in the media attention. You know, the governments just can't ignore us, that sort of thing. Going on from here, what are we going to be doing on from here? You know, we're going to be asking everyone to write letters to your Member of Parliament and also to your health ministers of your states. You know, if you've got a unique story, tell them, why do you think this is important? Why is it important for a national registrar? Why is it important for federal regulations? Why it's important for an independent regulator? Like, you know, I won't even ask about that one. But, you know, give them they want to hear from, you know, no one's asking for submissions, but we're just saying, let's keep the pressure up. If everyone can send letters to their politicians so that they can actually hear from lived experience, because lived experience is what really matters, and we're the ones who are going to make the change. And I think, you know, we've been working, so many in the community have been working on this for such a long time. It breaks my heart. You know, you had advocates back in 2010, advocates back in the 90s advocating for this stuff, and it's gotten nowhere, and that's just so hard. Yeah, we lost VADA, which was a great loss. You know, but I don't know, we can just keep going. Anyway, we'll do a template. We'll put that in the groups so everyone can see, you know, an example of what to do. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be scary. It can just be if I went through IVF and, you know, yes, they lost my embryos, or, you know, I had a great experience, but this could have been improved in this way. You know, I'd really like to see national reform because, you know, I moved states and then I couldn't transfer my embryos across. Whatever it is, your own personal experience. That's what, you know, the politicians really need to know. And I think with this rapid review, you know, they're going to be reviewing all the legislation in each state, but where are they going to get this lived experience from if we don't let them know? I know they're not calling for it yet. I don't know, Lyndall, you might have other ideas, because I know you've done, you know, you're a lawyer and more in this sort of space where I'm just a novice. So
Doing that's exactly the right thing to do. Just keep on them. It's the only thing that the politicians respond to.
Yeah. And also get your families involved, family and friends involved, because, you know, like Ben, at 43, he's found out he's donor conceived. You know, it could happen to anyone tomorrow, today. You know, your parents coming over, or, you know, a sibling, you know, contacting you. You know, I've heard of people getting phone calls from birth, deaths and marriages at their office desk, getting told that they're donor conceived while they're at work. And it's like, what the hell? Like, you know, and parents, please tell your children. I know a lot of people haven't and may be scared, but I didn't hear anyone tonight who was negative against their parents, and don't consider them their parents still. You know, it's, yeah, DNA is important, but also the family that brought us up is important as well. I can talk forever, can't I? So lucky I did mute myself for most of that, because otherwise you poor guys wouldn't have got a word in. Yeah, again, thank you so much for your time, everyone. Hopefully we've recorded this and we'll share it so everyone can see it. And yeah, I'll say goodbye. I don't want to say goodbye. I want to keep talking. Better say goodbye.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for giving another space for donor conceived people to talk as well, to share their stories.
Yeah, it's important. It's really important. I think it's important for us all, you know, all of us, everyone in the whole world, you know, parents, donors, you know, and you guys are most important people. You know, you're my child, basically, you know, and, you know, if I can do something that's going to make my child better, of course I want to try and do it for everyone else. All right, I'll let you go because I will keep on talking, I know.
Thanks all.
Thanks so much. Cheers.